So we heard that the AJC had reached out to Congressman Buddy Carter. That's the newspaper out of Atlanta. I contacted the reporter writing the story about it because I heard that she was doing it, and this is me calling her back. Hi, Tia, it's Dominic.
Hey. So, I'm assuming Representative Carter's family reached out. I mean, Representative Carter's staff reached out. So you said you organized?
Correct. Yeah, I created the event on Facebook. Myself, Congressman Carter's office wasn't involved in any organizational planning, anything. I'm aware that he was there, but he wasn't involved in anything other than, from what I understand, a desire to hear what we had to say about the human trafficking issue that undoubtedly is taking place here in the port city of Savannah and working its way to Atlanta on the I-95 corridor that I'm sure you're aware of.
Okay, a couple of questions. Number one, how did you find out that I emailed his office?
Because you did.
Yeah, but how do you know?
Well, I'm aware that you reached out to them because I'm the organizer of the rally, and concerned individuals relayed to me that the wrong people were being spoken to about the rally. And I've been given certain other bits of information that facilitated the urgency in my contacting you directly, because to be honest with you, Tia, my concern is that the full and honest story of what happened on Sunday is not going to be told. And really, I think we both know that perception is reality, and without an opportunity to express myself directly to you, I think you would be doing your readers a disservice if you talked about a rally without speaking to the correct individuals. But of course, you indicated that you may or may not be writing a rally or writing a story on the rally. And my purpose for contacting you is to say, if you are writing a story or have any interest in the story, the best point of contact would not be any tertiary members of the audience, but the organizer, which is no one other than me.
Representative Carter's participation at the rally.
And what was that? What participation did Congressman Carter have in your estimation?
That's exactly why I reached out to his office to find out.
Okay, so you're not writing about the rally, you're writing about the belief that Congressman Carter was involved, or I guess that's what I'm curious about.
Well, I reached out to find out what his level of involvement is, but I'm glad you reached out to me because I don't mind talking to you. I just want to make sure you understand what my article is focused on. It's not focused on the rally itself. I just want to make sure you understand that.
Okay, well, I guess then I'm curious.
We're on the phone.
Sure.
And I appreciate you reaching out. Let me ask you, because there has been, I saw there was news coverage of the rally. I read the article. But nationwide, I don't know if you're familiar with QAnon. Are you familiar with QAnon? Is that something you're involved in?
Involved in would be probably not the word that I would use. I think, like most people, we see the things that are written in the news and the media. I know there have been a lot of conversations about what Q is, what it represents, and I understand that there were people in attendance at the rally that had, be it insignia, slogans, sayings, or things representative of that movement, but there were also people there talking about, pro-life movements. There were anti-circumcision folks there. So my, I guess, biggest reason for contacting you was I did hear that you were making inquiries as to the involvement of any Anon related individuals, and I've got to tell you that yes, I'm aware that the Save the Children rallies around our demonstrations that are taking place are being incorrectly attributed as something that they're not, which probably by your question is what you're getting at, that this is a QAnon movement. And I have to tell you, as the organizer of the rally, whether or not I've read anything about QAnon or not, Q in that movement is not what this rally was about. It's not where it came from. There's not any organized group of Q supporters that got together and said, hey, because these other people stormed Hollywood, we've got to do that. I've seen that story about the people in Los Angeles and the things that they were saying. And obviously, for anybody that was in attendance, I gave a impassioned speech about the real reason why we were all here, and that every 30 minutes until 2:30, the microphone would be open to anyone to allow themselves to express themselves in any way that they saw fit. So not only did I speak, I had victims of sexual abuse, victims of human trafficking, I had general concerned citizens, I had alderwomen, local officials. I did see Congressman Carter there. I shook his hand, I said hello. That was great to see him there. I wish Mayor Van Johnson would have been there. And what you may find interesting is that he was reached out to directly by myself. We were told that he stated that he would be out of town. I have this email from his executive assistant. And then on his Facebook Live, people that were going to the rally asked him why he was going on vacation during a pandemic. And he clarified that, oh, no, I'm not going anywhere. I'm playing virtual piano for a church that's out of town, but I'm not leaving town. And if I get back to town for my virtual church service, then I wouldn't mind being among you. So he certainly didn't say he supported us or that he would be there, but he did misrepresent the facts of why he was not there. And I find it very interesting that, for whatever reason, our mayor would join protesters, rally goers, supporters of the other movement that took place in our city, peaceful as it was several months ago, and then on a truly unifying issue, something that brought white, black, rich, poor, jobless, employed, everybody from the political and social spectrum together, the mayor was nowhere to be found, and come to find out his excuse for not being there was just that, it was an excuse. So I'm thankful for everybody. I myself, and I'll be honest with you, I'm not a representative of any political party or anything, but as someone who, certainly has my own political beliefs, I can tell you that I worked with individuals from both sides of the aisle at the event. I gave everyone a platform to speak, and there was a healthy discussion. It was not, that's the one thing I guess that I want to clarify to you before and if this article gets written. This was not a QAnon rally. This was not anything like that. We were not, chanting about any of their slogans or anything. I'm not going to lie to you and tell you that there wasn't somebody there that did have the microphone for less than 2 minutes that was wearing a hat that had that letter on it. But the name Q, the word Q, none of that was ever expressed by anyone on the microphone. But as you can also understand, it would be disingenuous to represent all of the Black Lives Matter rallies or the George Floyd rallies by some of the fringe elements that took place there. And I think that would be what happens if you indicate or attempt to suggest that this was some kind of Q rally. What this was an attempt to bring awareness in one of the largest port cities about the fact that human trafficking does exist. And more than that, we're concerned about the fact that there's not a single outreach center or long-term care facility for victims of human trafficking anywhere south of Macon. And as a hotspot of human trafficking, this is, not debatable. That's something that we're working towards. That's why I was excited to have Alderwoman Gibson Carter with us, who founded the Human Trafficking Task Force here in Savannah, which has, as of yet, done little to nothing. It became a very politicized issue based on the alderwoman's statements, and this was not just an attempt to get, exposure on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, anything like that. There really was a purpose to this. It was to bring attention to the issue that we feel like, despite everything that's going on in the media with some pretty high-level alleged perpetrators of the type of crimes and criminal behavior that we're talking about, the media is more interested or seemingly been more interested in covering other issues. And all we were doing was attempting to break through that noise for a little bit and to let the news media there who was there. Every local media agency was there. I reached out to the governor's office, everyone. So everyone had a chance to see what was going on. And as we're now seeing, the conversation is happening. And again, I don't, I can't control what you write. I understand we all have jobs to do. And I understand the prevailing narrative that all of these rallies are some, right-wing extremist Q affiliated thing. And I think that's really unfortunate that perception's being given, because I had Harlem Globetrotters there, Congress people from every walk of life, people that don't even know what Q is. And if this rally gets represented as something that it's not, I don't think it would be unexpected, but I think it would be disingenuous.
So can I ask you, first of all, I never said it was a Q rally. I said QAnon had been promoting the rally.
What do you mean QAnon has been promoting the rallies? What do you mean specifically by that?
People affiliated with QAnon had been promoting the rallies. These rallies were nationwide. I'm sure you know that.
Right. What is someone who's affiliated? What do you mean by someone affiliated with QAnon? Someone who promotes the idea that research and information sharing is vital. I want to clarify people affiliated with QAnon is a Biden voter affiliated with Biden?
They could be promoting Biden. So let me ask you, so you make a good point. Let me ask you this. Do you believe there are elites who control the world and run a child sex ring? Do you believe that?
I believe that human trafficking is an issue that impacts both the elite, the middle class, and the poverty-stricken. I understand what you're suggesting with that question, so let me answer it by saying this. Human trafficking is something that affects all aspects of society. There are certainly people that are involved in it on a global scale. We see that with the influx of child migrants through our southern border. This is not debatable. I'm familiar with the Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell situation. I've read the court documents there. Now, I'm not someone who's ever seen what goes on in the shipping containers or some of the other places where it's alleged that children are trafficked. But I can tell you that I have done my due diligence in the research aspect and avenue of this discussion. And if you're asking if I think that some of the more wild and ridiculous claims that I've heard are accurate, I'm going to say, well, that's up to your own interpretation. Do I think that people in that upper 1% crust participate in human trafficking and the exploitation of children? Absolutely, but I don't think it's exclusive to them.
And so it sounds like you do study. Do you believe Q exists? That's a real person who has inside knowledge about things?
Are you asking me if I believe that someone is posting the information that undoubtedly is out there?
Yeah, the person who's posting is Q. Do you believe that they have this inside information and are relaying things to help, bring these conspiracies to light?
I believe that it is unquestionable that there is a movement, there is an operation, there is something taking place. The fact that you've acknowledged it as something that you're calling Q validates that it does exist. I don't believe that any information has been shared. I don't believe any predictions have been made. But I do believe that topics and questions have been brought up and asked, and that research and discussions have taken place as a result of the information being shared by the individual, the entity, the group, however you want to identify the letter Q that we're speaking about here. I just think it's important to clarify exactly what it is that you're asking. Do I believe that Q exists? Well, the fact that you're asking me about it would indicate that it does. The fact that people are talking about something indicates that it exists. Now, if you're asking me what I think Q is, I'll reserve my answer on that. Let me say this. I think that anytime people are called to research and decide for themselves the information that it is that they are uncovering, I think that's a good thing. Let me also state that the term PSYOP or movement is not necessarily a bad thing. I think anything that inspires people to, again, do their own research, to think for themselves, and to not be spoon-fed by the media is a great thing. I think it's obvious that whether you support or don't support the President of the United States, it's obvious that he's called to attention the fact that certain messages that are given, speeches or interviews, can be totally misconstrued and misrepresented by people in the media, whether or not it's intentional or not. I can give an hour-long speech that can be then condensed down into a 5 or 10-second blurb on the news that really misses the whole point of everything. Kind of like when the president spoke at, West Point, and they had no discussion about what he actually said, and they focused in on the fact that he took his time getting down the stairs. So I think you understand the power of what you write and its impact on the collective consciousness. And let me just clarify that I am not a conspiracy theorist. I'm a college graduate. I'm a professional with a career. You couldn't pick me out of a crowd. I don't look like a wild person. I'm not somebody that, I didn't bring any signs. I'm not out fighting people in the streets and saying you have to believe what I believe, but I am someone that is logical in their deductions, and I use critical thinking, and at the end of the day, I have a voice and a platform that I opened up to people. These weren't people that I knew. These weren't people that I invited. But the community came out. I had Harlem Globetrotters there. I had lawyers, attorneys, mortgage brokers, mothers, children. And let me tell you this. I think that, again, anytime people are doing their own research and making their own decisions based on that work, I think it's a good thing.
Well, it sounds like talking to you, and I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but it sounds like you are, aligned with QAnon. Just like if somebody says, I've been listening to Biden, I've been studying Joe Biden, I like what Joe Biden has to say, I hear you saying the same thing.
No, well, I've not made any statements about anything that Q may or may not have said. I do support the fact that, according to you, Q is some kind of entity that is fostering change and discussion, and be it X, Y, Z, or Q, I think anytime people are researching things, it's a good thing. So in a sense, if you want to say that I think, somebody that helps old ladies across the street is good, if I'm, encouraging that, sure. But let me clarify again, I'm not trying to be hostile at all, because I knew these questions were coming. You know why I'm calling you. This was not a rally. This was not some extremist anything. This was not a Q rally. supporters of that movement were there, but so too were pro-choice, pro-life, anarchists, libertarians, Democrats, liberals, and everyone else. So again, we have a freedom of the press, we have our First Amendment right, but we as individuals with platforms have an obligation, or at least I feel one, to be factual and accurate in our reporting. And I wanted to speak with you directly to clarify that this was not a Q rally. There were supporters of that movement there. I saw their signs, I saw hats, and I saw crazier stuff than that for sure. Stuff that even I didn't know. As somebody who's been, involved in independent research for the better part of 12 years, I met people there that were talking about things I'd never even heard anything about.
So I'm confused. It seems, you talk about Q it's clear that you've been researching Q, reading things posted by Q. Why, but when I asked you directly about it, you're not.
No.
Like you're distancing yourself.
Well, what I'm not going to do is allow myself, my persona, and my rally to be characterized as something that it's not. And I understand by your questions exactly what you're trying to do. I know why you messaged Buddy Carter or reached out to Buddy Carter. And I just want to tell you that whether or not I believe that the sky is red or blue, at the end of the day, that's not what we're talking about. And what I'm not going to ask you not to write anything, but what I will say is the people that were there know what this rally was about, and you will not do a service or justice to your readers if you characterize the rally as something that it's not.
Well, I understand that the rally had a general purpose, but isn't it accurate if we say the person who organized the rally is someone who has studied and read up on QAnon? Wouldn't that be something that people should know?
Well, that would be a liberty that you can take, because I've not said that to you. I said I'm familiar with who it.
Have. Yes, you have.
I've told you no. You.
You're familiar with Q.
I'm familiar with, but I'm also familiar with the Hungarian countryside, and that I've seen pictures of it. But that doesn't mean I'm a Hungarian.
I didn't call you QAnon. I said you're familiar with it and you've done your research. You've read the postings.
You've said that. You've said that.
QAnon, you said that.
I did not tell you. Tia, I've got this whole thing. I didn't say I've read the posts. I said I'm familiar with what it is. Because you brought it up. Well, because I saw that last week in Hollywood, there were people that stormed CNN and they were labeled as right-wing extremist QAnon supporters. So right there alone, it's an issue that's in the media. And what's interesting to me, Tia, is that for the last better part of 3 years, I've seen articles in the news, I've seen stuff on TV, all of this stuff trying to explain what Q might be, and certainly articles and people talking about what it is. It is just some crazy, kooky, right-wing conspiracy thing. And so whether or not I've read the posts, I think you'd have to be living under a rock to not know what it is. Are you affiliated with Q? You're the one talking about it.
I am familiar.
Okay, so I'm familiar with it in the same way you are.
See, I feel like you're not telling the truth.
It's funny hearing that from. That's really funny having a reporter tell me that I'm not telling the truth.
What does that mean?
It means exactly what I told you earlier, that it's very easy for messages to be misrepresented, certainly through the media, For example, I gave about an 8-minute speech to a crowd of about 100 people, and the news said that dozens of people marched from City Hall to Johnson Square. Well, that's completely backwards. We actually marched from Johnson Square to City Hall, and there were 117 people there. So I guess 9 dozen is, is that a couple dozen? Is that dozens? Sure. And you can write what you want, but I mean, obviously in the same sense, based on the information and the conversation that we've had here today, I'm no more affiliated with Q than you are. Because you're familiar with it. Well,
you refer to Q as an entity, and that's one of the things that people who are familiar with QAnon do. It's something that people who aren't familiar with QAnon don't do.
It's interesting because I think about 7 minutes ago in our conversation, I'll have to get back with you on the time, you were the one that asked me if I believe Q. Do I trust Q?
Because you had been referring to Q early in the conversation. I had never, again, I'm not as familiar with QAnon. I'm learning because I'm a journalist and it's my job. But the fact that Q was responded to as like a person or an entity, that's something I picked up on as you were talking.
Okay.
And so it made it clear to me that you said, I asked you about QAnon. You're the one who said Q. And again, I'm not saying it's bad or good. I'm just making an observation, but it seems like, and again, that's my whole reason for reaching out to Representative Carter, because it seems like maybe, you weren't as, you didn't promote that.
I didn't in any way. This rally, there was no affiliation, promotion, or encouragement of Q by anyone affiliated with that, whatever that organization is. And yes, I did see people that had symbols and other things that were representative of whatever that entity, movement, individual is. And I mean, I hope you know the thing. I'm really not trying to be hostile or play word games or anything, but what I don't want to do, and let me clarify this again, is have myself or my event that I organize be characterized as something that isn't true. And the reason why I'm doing that and the reason why I'm calling you is because I have seen what the news media has done to these different rallies and demonstrations that I've seen taking place. I've also, as somebody who's been to multiple Trump rallies, I've seen what the news media has said about those. So it's, it would be great if I could sit here and have this conversation with you and for me to tell you that I think you're going to be extremely honest and objective in your reporting. But I don't believe that, and neither do the American people, which is why I'm calling you to have this conversation, because based on your very first question to me, it was obvious and apparent what, whether you want to call it researching, inquiry, whatever, it's obvious that you've got more of an end in line with how you want the story to be represented, because Congressman Carter's name was never even mentioned. And I have a pretty good idea of how you knew he was there, but we all have to keep our sources close to our vest. I think you guys found a picture and a comment on Facebook, but, how did I find out you reached out to the Congressman? I guess, it is what it is. And I mean, you've given me 30 minutes of your time. I mean, if you have any questions for me about the rally or anything, that's great.
Yeah, I have to go. I actually have a 4 p.m., so I need to go. But I really appreciate your time.
Yes, you as well, Tia. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.